India is also to resume normal Chinese trade imports after 5 years of tensions and restrictions following the deadly Galwan Valley clashes at the LAC in Ladakh. India-China bilateral trade relations are set to thrive once more as Donald Trump's tariff tantrums have caused uncertainty and a rift in India-US relations. Yet, in the background, India's Modi government is also taking steps to reduce the nation's rare earth mineral dependence on China. With a $788 million or 7,000 crore rupee plan, the Modi government has tripled its rare earth magnet manufacturing incentives with an aim to eventually end any reliance on Chinese export curbs and meet key strategic needs, especially in the defense sector.
Our two nations now seek to move ahead.
For now, India is moving ahead with normalization of trade ties with China. First, after the Modi-Xi meeting in Kazan and then at the SCO summit this year. It set the stage for de-escalation and demilitarization at the LAC border and resumption of direct flights and people-to-people exchanges. New Delhi sees Donald Trump's tariffs on India's Russian oil imports as hypocritical and unfair, a move which is simply aimed at eventually curtailing India's global rise. PM Modi's refusal to bow down to Washington's trade demands also seems to have raised eyebrows in the White House. This even as President Trump himself is desperate for a trade deal with China as US economy faces risks of recession and inflation. Ashley Tellis, who served in the White House under President George W. Bush, states, "The problem now is Trump's deepening grievances against India. He may change his mind down the road, but presently the imperative of securing a trade deal with China trumps all other geopolitical considerations," unquote. Yet, these visuals of Prime Minister Modi with Xi Jinping and President Putin are sure to have rattled the US president. From resuming trade relations to finding common ground on issues like state-sponsored terror and fair trade in multilateral platforms, Modi's visit to China opened the door for multiple opportunities for both the countries. Now, India is going to fast-track long-pending import clearances approvals for Chinese goods and end visa restrictions. A senior government official told Economic Times, "We will soon begin issuing and renewing licenses for suppliers from several countries, including China. Applications will be assessed on a case-to-case basis," unquote. The festive season in India that lasted for the past 3 months led to a surge in demand for electronic goods and items like large-screen TVs, appliances, and cars or electric vehicles. Simultaneously, the discount in goods and services tax or GST newly introduced by the government right before the festive season began led to an increased sales and inventory shortages. Now, India wants to cater to the shortfall with unfreezing the supply chain with China. Despite the restrictions, imports from China have increased year by year and have jumped 16% annually, reaching $91 billion in the initial 9 months of this year or 2025, underlining the growing import dependence of India on China, particularly for electronics, chemicals, and raw materials. So while the government is actively promoting Make in India and taking self-reliance approach in apparently all the possible sectors, the country still relies on foreign goods for the immediate and short-term needs.
I mean, there are people who would say, why are we importing so much from China?
Manufacturing and tech sectors are majorly intertwined with Chinese supply chains and raw materials and cannot be replaced at the moment. India-China ties were strained after the border clashes in Galwan Valley in 2020. The Indian government imposed bold moves and banned several Chinese social media platforms including TikTok and Shein.
Operation Sindoor, 140 crore नागरिकों के जिम्मे.
New Delhi also banned direct flights from China or visas for Chinese nationals. There had been growing calls to boycott Chinese products by the public at large. Direct border trade between India and China through Himalayan border routes was also restricted. Now, while the government maintains national security interests will never be compromised for any trade deals, however, the country acknowledges that certain Chinese imports are also essential for India's growth. Meanwhile, China remains keen to increase its presence in India even further, one of the world's largest consumer markets and soon to be the third biggest global economy, surpassing Germany before 2030. Yet the long-term goal for New Delhi remains to de-risk from Chinese dominance, especially of rare earth minerals and rare earth magnets. The CCP has expanded its rare earth restrictions, prohibiting their end use for defense purposes and chips production. To counter this, missions like National Critical Mineral Mission 2025 and the Deep Ocean Mission launched by the Indian government says a lot about the country's focus in exploring rare earth minerals' new discoveries. China remains the largest supplier of rare earths across the world, producing 70% and refining 90%. India is expected to balance these with US and Australia moving forward. The report states, China's share is expected to fall from 69% to 51% in mining and 90% to 76% in refining by 2030, according to the IEA. This trend reflects a broader international effort to develop more balanced and resilient supply chains. Unquote. India's emergence in the rare earth landscape is not only a way to reduce its dependency on foreign countries, but also to ensure strategic autonomy and industrial resistance, thereby ensuring defense and industry needs cannot be held hostage either by supply chain restrictions or unfair, whimsical tariff policies. What do you think? Should India normalize trade ties with China due to Trump's uncertain trade policies? Leave a comment with your opinion in the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.